everybody. If you like combat sports in all forms, such as Kyokushin Karate, boxing, and mixed martial arts, make sure to hit the subscribe button below. Turn on the notifications to know when new episodes come out, as the Drew Experience is a community that is growing fast. I'd just like to say thank you to a few supporters of the show. First and foremost, KRT Tips and Tricks and One Kyokushin. They are the two largest pages online for Kyokushin content. Oh, as well as Martial Way blog. I got to thank Scott as well from there. So make that three. They are the three largest. And they do such a great job of promoting Kyokushin. They've backed me. I've backed them. If you are someone that does Kyokushin and wants to share your content, make sure to send it to them, whether that's One Kyokushin, KRT Tips and Tricks with Senseis Wesley Jensen and Darren Stringer, and Martial Way blog hosted by Scott Heaney. As well as, I want to say, if you live in Quebec and you're looking for a great martial arts dojo, there are many great martial arts dojos, especially in Kyokushin Karate. I personally recommend Kyokushin Boucherville under the IKO Nakamura Association, headed by Chien-Pierre Catafort and Chien Tats Nakamura, who's out in Western Canada if you live out west. This is an organization that is very inclusive. It is true to Sosai Oyama's roots. They really want to bring back Kyokushin to what it was. And they have such a great team from everyone that works with them, such as Sensei Joanne Fournier of Karate Joanne Fournier, and Kyokushin Hawkesbury, headed by Shian Lino Gambudo, Sensei Glenn, as well as the other senseis with Sensei Tony, amongst many other amazing individuals who are in IKO Nakamura. If you're looking to really learn some new habits, take your health into your hands, discover the tradition of martial arts and how it can make you excel, look no further than IKO Nakamura, where quality and community come first. And with that, we are off to the races with our guest. Today's guest is a big returnee. He is one of my favorite people I've met in 2021. Also a very pivotal, one of the pivotal three people that really helped make my decision of when I would come back to Kyokushin and with who. He is a sensei in Kyokushin Hawkesbury. He is also a successful business owner, and he's just a real passionate supporter of combat sports, martial arts, and he knows his information on films. He is the one, the only. Welcome back, my friend, Sensei Tony.
Drew, thanks again, man. Thanks for having me back. It's great to repeat. Feel really good. This is a great way for me to, do some Kyokushin, because we can't do a lot of Kyokushin right now, right? So here we go.
I did my Zoom class on Wednesday. It was very good, and thank God for Sensei Sebastian for saying, we've all been away for holiday. Go slowly.
Well, it's absolutely right, because, when we're away for a little bit, we want to come back strong. We want to go full force, but our bodies maybe are not ready for that. So it's better to ease into it so that we don't get hurt, and then we can come and we can repeat and then come back stronger. So definitely don't overdo it, even though you want to overdo it.
Totally agree. Especially me, because coming back from a 2-year break, I was a green belt when I was with Shin Kyokushin. And then after that, coming back like with Chien-Pierre, he has his methods, he has his philosophy, he has his vision of how like my progress and trajectory will go. So I'm trusting the process. My progress is in the hands of him, Sensei Sebastian, Sensei Corinne, and all those in Boucherville, and of course, Sensei Joanne Fournier, if I ever need additional tips.
Well, all those people that you named, and they're really adept at looking at you, and they're just looking at you for a while. They're looking at you, and then they come back after and they're telling you, hey, you know what, this, or you know what, that. And it's not just generic stuff that they're in their Rolodex and they say, oh, stretch or do this or do that. These are specific things that they're tailor making because they saw something in you, say, oh, he tends to do this, or he's not doing this. And they won't tell you something right away because you can see that they're absorbing you, they're watching you, and then they give you back targeted feedback. And it's just so great. I'm over there, I'm doing a class or a seminar, and halfway through I'll be pulled aside. I'll say, hey, you know what, you tend to do this, you tend to do that. And I'm like, hey, wow, man, they noticed that. And the feedback is amazing, and you get better. It's just what a community.
One thing I've really learned to know, this caught me by surprise when I joined Nakamura in November, was when I got the syllabus and I bought the kick book for that Chien-Pierre has with his team. I never knew that we only have 3 katas compared to Shin or IKO or the others, where it's kata 4, kata 5. Like we only have 3 katas, and
That's right.
I
Well,
wanted
those
to
are
ask.
Canadian katas, the 4, the 5s, those are additions that, are North American. So they're not really from the source. So if
Mhm.
we're going back to the source, Nakamura, that's what they're all about. They're about going back to Oyama and, everything that came from him. So the things that were added, they took those out, right? So that's why you had that surprise. Yeah.
It was a big shock, and I noticed there's more emphasis on the kicking katas, like the Sokugis, like the Sokugi 1, Sokugi 2, Sokugi 3. But the fact that there's only 3 katas, I find that makes it much more, I wouldn't say easy, but it's much more um, efficient. It's a more efficient way of learning.
It's funny you mentioned that because I was just discussing it with someone, and I was telling him, it's not only karate, it's a lot of these types of things is where the longer it goes, everybody wants to add something to it. So, in the beginning, those are 3 katas that were, part of the core. And then later on, as, people got higher up in the belts, the people that the organizers, they said, well, it's so easy now compared to what we have. Let's add something. So they add a kata, and they add, all these little things. And before you know it, it's like so much more than what they had to learn. So in a way, it's not fair. They're adding stuff because, they've been doing it for 25 years. And for them now it's easy to say, well, why don't we add this? Why don't we add that? Well, those things weren't there originally. So when they learned it, they only had the core. And now they're asking us that plus more. So, that's not 100% fair. So distilling it back to the original, I'm a big fan of that.
I really agree with you there too, Sensei. And not only that, like, is it when you go in there, another thing that really caught my eye about Nakamura is that I always like to joke, we are like the Navy SEALs of Kyokushin, where we have the toughest training, like, and we really put a lot of emphasis on attention to detail. And that's the first thing when I did my first class with Xian Pierre during my first vacation from work. Xian Pierre said to me when he was guiding me, he's like, one thing you're going to notice with me and IKO Nakamura, and not just me, with all the schools in Nakamura, we pay a lot of attention to detail, but it's to make sure that you have good technique because, as you say, we're like the Navy SEALs.
You're so right. And it's funny because Kyokushin is already the Navy SEALs of karate. So, Kyokushin is the premier brand of karate. Everybody knows it, full contact. So they're already the Navy SEALs of karate. And then Nakamura is the Navy SEALs of Kyokushin. So it's you're getting it at 2 levels. And what Xian Pierre is talking about is super important, those details. Everybody knows that, to learn a movement, you have to repeat it 1,000 times. To master it, you have to repeat it 10,000 times. Okay. So if you're doing a movement wrong in the beginning 8,000 times until you get corrected, and then at the end you say, okay, this is how I'm supposed to do it, then you only have 2,000 times. You wasted those 8,000 times that you've been doing it all through, orange belt and blue belt and green belt. If you don't learn from the beginning the proper way, you're wasting that repetition because you're learning something that you later have to unlearn. Because when I got to brown belt, and black belt, those details became super important. But I wish I was pushed more early on because I was just doing whatever until then they start to tweak it. But if you tweak it from the beginning, all those repetitions that I would have done would have been for the end result. So I would have been a better martial artist. So I'm a big stickler for, correcting that stuff as soon as I can in my students.
I totally agree. And there's one other thing that really caught my eye. Now, like when they do like the breathing, they do that at blue belt right away. This is something that we did not have if you were part of IKO, Shin. They only bring that in when you're like a green belt or brown belt, and they bring that in a blue belt. And I think that is one of the most ingenious moves to really get a Kyokushin karateka under IKO Nakamura prepared of what's to come. Why we do it at an earlier level compared to other associations.
Sure, it's just like Sanshin kata. It's a kata that's introduced early because it takes so long to master that the earlier that you introduce it, the better. Okay, and that breathing, when you're a kid, you don't know what you're doing. You're just making that noise. You think, but it's so core to the power of karate. It's unbelievable. If you do it properly, and the earlier you do it and you master it, by the time you get to black and further, it's amazingly powerful. You know, you look at these guys from Japan and say, why do they have so much power? Why do they have so much presence? Well, because they take Ibuki seriously and they do those moves, you know, with heart. So we would do well to emulate them for sure.
Mm-hmm. And I really see that too, especially with Xian Lino, Xian Pierre. Like they really want to emulate as much as the Japanese way possible, but they want to bring in the North American way. But I can understand why there's so much tradition. Like, for example, when the first time I went in, when you go to a dojo in Kyokushin, you go us once. But in Xian Pierre's dojo, you go us at the entrance, us 2 times. And I didn't know that. So that was another new lesson for me. But then when he explained it, it's like, okay, it's understandable. It's so organized and it's like so there's like so much meaning, but it's like you right away you catch on and respect that meaning.
Absolutely. Look, the Japanese, okay, you've got to respect their culture because, you know, they do everything the right way or the best way, right? They have tea ceremonies, they have calligraphy, they have, you know, everything that they do, they want to do it the best way they could do it. So that distills into their martial arts as well. So, front kick, there's only a couple of ways you can do it, right? I mean, it's just a front kick, but it's a lot more complicated than it looks. So they've distilled it down to what's the best way to do the front kick. I want to thrust. I want to do this. So, why not use that knowledge that they've done? They've done this over, hundreds of years. So, why are you trying to reinvent the wheel when they've already had it and they've perfected it? So if you listen to them and you emulate what they're doing, you're going to take advantage of those hundreds of years of fine tuning that they've done. It's not like they just threw a front kick. They analyze and say, how can I get the maximum thrust? I need to use my hips. I need to do this. So for a Mawashi, what's the best way to do it? Should I do this? Should I do that? They've done all that mind work for you. And now they're trying to drill it for you so that you can learn from all that experience, all those years of knowledge. So, tradition, it's not tradition just to be tradition. It's tradition because it works and it's been distilled down to that this is the best way to do it. So I'm not saying it's the only way. And, when you train with somebody and you've seen that kick 1,000 times, if you do it differently, well, then maybe they won't see it coming. So for sure, there's things that you can tweak and you can add for tournament karate, etc. But, the tradition is the strength.
Very, very true. I agree with you. And and it's not just like, as you say, tradition. They're not doing it because of tradition to make it look like look in vogue. Like the tradition is they want to break down every single mechanic of how it can be tweaked if necessary and what is the proper way. So that's what you see when you're looking at the Japanese fighters. They're not brawlers. They're tactful. If I said that right, I'll just say they're tactic like snipers. It's like American Sniper. They're not American, they're Japanese, but they really have the strategy to find the mechanics to get their technique in during kumites.
It's crucial because, look, brawling is just brawling. It's just two guys or two girls, two opponents going at it. Usually the bigger, stronger one will win. That's how it's been in nature for, millennia, right? So karate is trying to break that mold. Karate is trying to say, I'm smaller. This guy might be bigger. He might be stronger. He might be all of these things, but I can still beat him because I have technique. So, if I work on my strengths and work against his weaknesses, I can beat him. So it's not brawling. The Japanese, of course, are tacticians because they're trying to use their strengths on your weaknesses. So, it's the great equalizer, right? That's what karate is all about. A smaller guy being able to take out a bigger, less experienced guy. Now, if they're both equally knowledgeable and one guy's bigger and stronger, most likely he'll take the prize, right? But not always. So, that's what karate is all about, using tactics and technique to overcome physical attributes that your opponent might have.
It's I definitely agree there. And that's why, like, when we look at, like I said, he's going to hate it when I mention it. He doesn't care anymore. I mean, Mo knows, Mo, when you watch a Mohammed chick fight and he's fought other guys, I'm always going to respect the opponents Mohammed has had. However, there's a level to this game because Mohammed has the knowledge that he had from IKO that you had from IKO too. There's just that, like, I can understand why when it's former, like, association and when they go to, like, Nakamura or they go elsewhere, they're so sought after because of what they have from the foundations. And when you watch Mohammed, when Mohammed was fighting under the IKO 1 banner, he was just schooling his opponents. There was like a level like where he knew the mechanics of what the patterns were, and it was like he was kind of like a field commander where he was like looking at, okay, this is your punch is your supply line. I'm gonna neutralize your arm, and your supply line's gone. Oh, you have a good front kick. Well, what if I just keep kicking that, giving a low calf kick, and then your artillery line is destroyed? And that's how it is. It's so much strategy.
It's fight IQ. I mean, look, you take a guy like Mo. I mean, he's gifted physically, right? I mean, he's got the attributes of a good fighter, and that's half the battle. But he's also got the mental part of it, right? So the things that you're saying, you know, he'll study you, he'll figure out what you're doing and how you can neutralize that, right? So that's what these fighters do. You know, the more you're in the game, the more that you can pick this up. If you've seen a Mawashi come at you like 1,000 times, you know, your brain is already processing what that guy's doing ahead of time. And that's just a regular karate guy. A guy like, you know, Mo that's going to tournaments, he's living, eating, breathing karate all the time, right? So he's on another level, right? So, you know, you put those two things together, the physical attributes and the drive to succeed and the attention to detail that he has, and that's why he becomes a champion. It's a great formula, right?
Yeah, it's totally true. There's just so many ways of really breaking down the technique. Everybody has their own way of expressing it. And, you know, I just think there are many gifted karatekas, and there's so many gifted karatekas. And, you know, I just want to make that very, very clear. However, when it comes to, you know, North America, I just think, you know, if you're from Quebec, it's between Mohamed Chick, Mick Cordero, and Vincent Michaud. If Vincent decides to compete again, because I know Vincent is more into kickboxing now and doing his own thing, which is great to see. But, you know, Quebec really runs through those three. It's Mick, Mo, and Vincent. And, you know, there's some other heavyweights, you know, I'm not going to say names, where they were, I'll say that for off the record, where they've said, well, you know, like they said, oh, there's a guy that can stand with Mo. No, there's zero chance. I mean, if you're catching, if he decides to come back, and as I say, you know, if he decides to come back, and it is with who we think it is, cornering him, it's going to be a very tough night in the office for all opponents. They have a very big puzzle to solve, and that's just the reality. You know, the quality of we have such quality Kyokushin in Quebec. So, like, and especially with Mo, like, that's, if Mo just wakes up and says, "Hey, I'm back," it's like,
I'd love to see it. It'd be great. It'd be great, man. I'd sign me up. Where can I go watch? Because that'd just be amazing, right? So look, it's you know, we have a mountain to climb in North America, because, you know, guys like people in Japan and Russia, you know, they live off of karate 100%, right? So I mean, they're in day in day out. While here in North America, some of us, you know, have to hold down a job, and we got other things to do, and then we do it as much as we can. While those guys, man, they're like state subsidized, some of them, and you know, they have all kinds of sports people working around them, helping them, psychologists, all kinds of stuff, right? So here we are in Quebec, and we've got our own machine, you know, and we're hanging with those guys. So, you know, we're doing something right, that's for sure.
There's a lot of good Russians out there. I mean, like, Mo's like told me about some of the guys. Like, there's Darman Satanoska. I always butcher their names. It's hard to say Russian.
They're hard to say, man. But we know what you're talking
about. There was one guy, he fought a Russian Armenian, David Sarkosian, heavyweight. He destroyed. He blasted Damyunov. Like Damyunov, if you remember, like, there was a Brazil tournament, I believe, and Mo showed me the video of, like, this guy David Sarkosian, and he just destroyed Damyunov. You know how Zari is very, like.
You know what's happening now? It's like we're in a golden age of the tournament fighting. Is because before, you know, you go in there and you kind of knew who you were fighting, or you heard some stories about them. But nowadays, you've got tape. You've got endless tape on these guys. So, you know, you have a machine that, you know, you're watching all these guys fights, and no matter how much you try to change it up, there's tendencies that's built into you, okay? So you go into a fight knowing how this guy reacts to X, Y, Z. So it's so much now doing your homework and tailor making your strategy against that opponent. So it's a little unfair in a sense, you know, because they know all your moves, sort of. So it's on you to keep changing it up and say, well, that was me last tournament. Now, check me out now. This is completely new. But no matter what, you'll have some tendencies from before. So, you know, I have no doubt that guy studied Damyanov, and he saw where he could take him, and he took him. So, it's very important.
Very, very true, especially now too. Like social media, like, it's like there's so much more now. Kyokushin, I believe, has finally engaged the digital age in terms of really embracing social media. So everyone, like I could have like 5 Iranians adding me, and Iran, like Nakamura's got some very legitimate Iranians with like Shian Asan and amongst others, and it's great to see because Iran is another superpower that not many people talk about.
Absolutely. Well, you're right about social media and just the internet in general is allowing Kyokushin to branch out and for new bonds to be made, right? I mean, just take your show, for example. I mean, you're promoting Kyokushin in a great fashion. You've had amazing people, man. Pettis, Sarah, all these people that just amazing to have on your show, and it's all because of the reach of the internet now, and you'll be able to be put into contact with these people and get them on your show and get their perspectives, right? So for sure, this is a golden age, and we have to embrace it even more. So I'm looking forward to the role that you're playing, to get Kyokushin out there and to make new contacts. I mean, I never would have met you without your show, right? So,
dude, yeah, you added me, and I was like, and I'll never forget. I was like, where are you at? And you're like, oh, I'm in Hawkesbury under IKO Nakamura with Lino. And I was like, Shian Lino. And I was like, okay, that's cool. Yeah.
It's a small world, you start dropping names and you say, oh, and before you know it, you're with Pierre and you're telling, and it's like, I've been with Pierre forever, right? So it's a small Kyokushin world in the end.
Yeah, it's very true. And I mean, I just want to say, this is what I want to say. A lot of people ask, like, why Nakamura? What happened? You had other offers on the table, which you did. I'm very thankful for them. But, you're one of it was you, Sensei Joanne, and Mo. Mo was the most important because I'm a package deal with him, as everyone knows. Like, I go where he goes. But when I met Shian Pierre the first time, Mo was like, what do you think of Shian Pierre now that you met him in person? You haven't just had him on your show, you met him in person. And I said at the time, I really think I could be with Nakamura. And then Mo, you're going to go to another organization just for the fun of it. But Mo was just telling me, then Mo would come back. He's like, look, I think this is the best move for you. He's like, I'm going to support it. And I think, if for your development, you need his kind of structure. And yeah, I mean, and then you also played a role too. And I mean, I know, let me tell you, how many times did I have conversations with you, Joanne, and Mo? Like, is this the right move? Like, how?
Maybe 1,000. I'll have to go back and see.
Oh, God.
It was interesting the way you contacted me because you just kind of threw out some tidbits and you asked me some questions because you didn't really know who I was. You didn't know. Then so when I answered you and I answered, correctly, let's call it. Well, you just kept, throwing me more stuff until you got to a point like, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about, and I'm gonna open up a bit more to him. And you did the right thing because you go to one source and they'll tell you, yeah, this is great, blah 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 blah. But that's one source. You go to another source. When you hear the same story being repeated from multiple people, then hey, you know what? There's something here. I got to go check this out. So you met the man himself, and anybody who meets Shian Pierre can see, that just he oozes karate and knowledge. He doesn't just say stuff out of nowhere. The stuff that he says is distilled knowledge. It's amazing. And at the end of every seminar, he'll talk about stuff and we'll go meandering in all different directions, but I lap that stuff up because there's nuggets of wisdom and greatness and all of that stuff, and if you take some of that stuff to heart and you incorporate it into your being, man, you'd be so far ahead because that knowledge is years and years of knowledge being presented to you distilled that he had to, blood, sweat, and tears to learn all that stuff, and he's just practically handing it to you. So it's for you to take it and just why that sounds cool. No, really listen and really absorb it, man, and make it part of your persona, and you're gonna be ahead light years. You're gonna supercharge your martial arts experience. So
it's very true. He's very I like to always joke. He's kind of like the John Danaher of Kyokushin, I would even say also. I would even also say to a degree Rickson Gracie. I mean, not fighting wise, but Rickson's philosophy on life, because Shian Pierre is a man that lives in flow, but loving what he does with that flow. And but he's a mix of Danaher and Rickson in terms of how he goes about life. He's just
the cerebral method of Danaher, you're right. He just will explain it. You're like, wow, man, that's amazing. You know who else is really good? Zahabi from TriStar. He's very cerebral too. And you listen to some of his podcasts, and he'll break down a UFC fight from A to Z, and you're like, wow, man, that guy obviously knows what he's talking about. I mean, obviously having worked with GSP and the other successes that he's had. So and we have that homegrown talent. You can go train with Shian Pierre, man. It's right there. So it's a gift, we have to acknowledge that, because if you lived in, I don't know, Winnipeg, and nothing wrong with Winnipeg, but you don't have access to that caliber of people, right? So either you got to do it twice a year, or we can do it every week, twice a week. It's amazing.
I'm very, very thankful. Like, I live in Quebec for that. I mean, the only problem is Boucherville is very far for me, but I don't use it as an excuse. I make the time. I mean, people are like, oh, it's so far. How do you listen? When you find a quality teacher and a quality school that fits your values, that fits what you want to achieve in martial arts, and especially whether it's competing or just learning the necessary skills to become better outside the dojo in your life, field, career, you're going to make the time to go there. And yeah, you know what? I take a bus to Boucherville every Friday and Saturday. It's far, but
it's worth it, man. Look, it's not a grocery store where, I'm going to this one and now I move and now this one's closer. Well, I just go to this grocery store, like this is a lifelong thing, right? And the stuff you're learning from someone, you go somewhere else, look, they're going to focus on different things, and it might not be wrong, but it's just a different story. So you're kind of restarting, right? So, it's super important to go somewhere quality and learn the message that they're trying to teach.
The minute I got there, I knew I belonged. That's the thing too. The first class, and every time I go there, it feels like it's the first day all over again. That's what I love about Boucherville. Because even if it's Sensei Corinne, his wife teaching, or if it's like Sensei Sebastian or one of the other senseis, they always add a nice kick to change it up always. And then
they have so many quality people there. I mean, it's just amazing, right? So here I am. I'm a third degree sensei, right? So here in Hawkesbury, it's great. I'm teaching people stuff, and it's great for me. But when I go over there, I'm the student. Okay, I'm the student, and everybody is ahead of me, right? I've got 5th degrees, left, right, center, 4th degrees, even senseis, people that are my level, but they got a lot to teach me, right? So I feel like a kid again. And I love that feeling when I go there, because it's I'm learning karate all over again, and they're correcting things that need to be corrected, and I'm like, wow, they're right about that, right? So it's a great give and take, and I feel rejuvenated every time that I go there.
Me too. Every time I leave class, I go in class, I feel like it's a long trip, but then I get in. And then it's like I enjoy the hour. I soak it in. The hour goes by so fast, and when it's going by fast, that means
and you find the drive back or the ride back, you're just assimilating all the stuff that you learn there, and it's the drive there is a lot longer than the drive back for me. The drive back, I'm like I'm back home, and I'm like, what happened, right? Because I'm still percolating all the stuff I learned as I'm driving, right? Luckily, I don't crash, but I get to where I'm going. But it's a great feeling when I get back.
It's just amazing, sometimes, for example, I mean, you used to live in Montreal, how bad our public transit system can be, especially the metro. So for me, I have to take the metro from the Orange Line to Barrie UQAM, and then transfer on the Green Line, to get off at Radisson. And there was times where people were jumping on the train tracks 2 days in a row. So I had to take an Uber all the way to Boucherville, and then because Sensei Corinne, and Champierre felt so bad because they knew I was come all the way out to Boucherville. They're like, we'll drive you to the metro, we feel and that's goes to show that's why I love them, because that goes to show what I love about Nakamura. Everyone treats each other like family, whether it's the first time you're starting, whether you've been there for 10 years, 5 years, everybody is treated for the value they bring.
Well, listen, that, being a martial artist, and we understand the struggles that other person is putting in too, and all the sacrifices that they're making, and all the pain they put their body through to get there. And there's so much respect, and that's what it's all about. It's all about respect. I look across there and I see another sensei. I know what he did or she did to get there, right? And all the sacrifices that they need. So I wasn't there with them every step of the way, but I know that their route was, I'm sure, as twisty or as fun-filled as mine. So, there's a lot of mutual respect there. And, they have stuff to teach me. I have stuff to teach them. I love working with them because it's people that I haven't worked with before sometimes. And, you pick up things, and it's just that shared camaraderie that we have. It's I don't know if there's a lot of other sports that you get that in, I know hockey, maybe you get that bonding, but just with karate, it seems like it's just an extra step higher,
It really is. Sometimes, as I say, my goal is, right now, because everything's closed down, but I know I'm losing weight. Don't worry. I'm training as much as I can and whatnot. But the goal is right now, okay, so for those who want to know what the plan is, This is the plan. This year, I'm just getting back in shape. I'm going to do it properly under Jean-Pierre's guidance with everyone. And if I have any questions or whatnot, like I know I have a wealth of knowledge within Nakamura that I can go to no matter what, because everyone's just been so welcoming and like no, and there's no such thing as a dumb question. The goal is to compete at Gold Cup in 2023. Nice. And then in 2024 or 2025, when I'm a brown belt or showdown by then. But I think I always say like I will be a brown belt in 2024. I will say that I will be competing in ring wars in the USA. I want to go to Rochester. I want to wave that Canadian flag, and I really want to put on not a show for myself, but I want to show that ring wars that IKO Nakamura is here to also share their values.
That's great, man. That's great. That's great. I'm going to follow your journey too, man, because that's, it's a shared journey, right? I mean, every time we see, even in UFC, someone with a karate or a Kyokushin background and they do well, we all do better. We all feel for him. We're all rooting for them. So, you have that whole community behind you, helping you. So that's awesome. Yeah. The goal-oriented way that you're doing it is correct too. It's not just like whatever happens will happen. That way you just go with the tides. You don't know where you're going to end up. You have a goal, and you're going for it. So I have a lot of respect for you.
Thank you. It's breaking down. Thank God I have Mo fucking keeping me on track every day. Be like, hey, remember the goal. Hey, remember, it's good.
That's what it is. The buddy system, man. It's necessary. It's necessary.
You need that. You really need that. Speaking of UFC, I mean, like now it's back tomorrow with the fight night, but it's a great fight night card. I mean, I'm excited for Cater versus like Giga Chikadze. Like he's a karate fighter, kickboxer. He's got a karate background actually.
Sure. Too. Yeah, it's great. I'm really looking forward to it. There's a lot of good matchups on there, and I'm super looking forward to it. I feel like I've been deprived a bit because we didn't have one last week, and I have withdrawal pains, right?
I know it's always like but I like that though. Like they make you have the withdrawals, and then it's like, oh, I'm missing so much, and they put on like a great fight night card to kick it back. But to begin 2022. We have a big one, and it's not every year like a heavyweight championship begins the year. We have Ngannou versus Gan. How?
It's amazing. I mean, Ngannou's story, man, unbelievable. And it's unfortunate he's having some issues with the contract and everything else, so they're not respecting him as much. As part of the way the UFC operates. They don't want to give you too much juice because then you ask for the sky, right? So they're trying to hold those guys back. They never gave Stipe a nice, welcoming. They always kind of kept him down. Didn't market him properly.
No.
So I see that being repeated a little bit here. A little bit of disrespect, which but only makes Ngannou want to show them up even more, right? So I'm really looking forward to that fight against a former teammate of his from France. So that's very interesting twists and turns in that whole story, and it's kind of weird because if he wins, he's on the hook for another fight. If he loses, then his contract is over. So it's that championship clause that he has there. So it's almost a disincentive for him to win because he wants to get out of that contract so that he can go get some boxing money. There's a lot of money to be made in boxing, and everybody knows Ngannou is the hardest hitter in UFC and one of the hardest hitters on the planet. So everybody's looking forward to matching him up with a boxer. But he's got to get through Cyril first. So let's not count our chickens before they're hatched, right?
And Cyril is not any type of heavyweight we've seen. For a heavyweight that can strike as technical as he can, it's extremely like eye raising. And here's a funny story. Mo and I saw Cyril Gane compete in TKO. He started at the bottom when he made his North American debut. Yeah. Wow. Huge guy, like massive unit. Like the guy he fought, basically his move was, and it's funny, like those guys in France, like Ferdinand Lopez's team, it's not Kyokushin, but when you watch the guy Imamov, the middleweight fighter, there's Gan, there's Manon Fiorot, they have kind of like a Kyokushin kind of style to them in a sense.
Well, it's first of all, when you said that you saw him early on in his career, it just maybe give me a flashback back to Wonderboy Thompson, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. I saw him fight on a kickboxing card in Montreal at the Medley many moons ago when he was just a wee lad. I mean, he was the kid. He was so young looking. It was unbelievable. And after the fight, me and my friend, we went to meet him. It we were so impressed with his performance because the way he would just control that whole fight, that kickboxing fight from A to Z. He just destroyed his opponent. And we meet him and we're like, wow, you know, like that was amazing. And he's like, yeah, how y'all doing? You know, I love Canada. And I'm like, wow, man, where are you from? You sound like my cousin. He goes, I'm from South Carolina. And I'm like, wow, my cousin's from North Carolina and you guys sound the same, you know? And anyway, we didn't get any pictures back then because we didn't have phones and it was like an old other era. But then, you know, many years later, I'm watching this his debut at the UFC, and I'm like, that looks like, could that be? And I called my friend. I'm like, dude, that's the guy, man. It's got to be the guy. And it was. And it was just an amazing connection, right? So here you are. You know, saw him early on, so you're a bit of a fan. You know, supported him from the beginning. So it's awesome to see him reach those heights now, fighting for the championship, right? I mean, it's already got the interim belt, so there we go.
And that's the thing. Like, I mean, if he wins the heavyweight belt, then they're saying Jon Jones is going to fight him, and then everyone says, "Oh, this is not a fight that's good for Jon." Jon's been listen, Jon. Whether you love or hate Jon Jones, I feel that Jon Jones it's one thing to look at him and be like, okay, well, look at his last fight. But if you get a hungry Jon Jones that's motivated, that's in the gym, powerlifting every day, getting ready, Jon is a very basic fighter. But it's like when you get in there with him and he grabs you, that grab for his grappling is not fun to get.
He's an instinctive fighter, okay? So like he'll pull stuff out because for him it feels right, and he just goes with the flow, and that's what makes him so dangerous. He's hard to figure out. He can't pigeonhole him too much in his style. The only thing is that, yeah, you know, if you push him hard, maybe, you know, you can get him to crack. Like Gustafsson came really close to cracking him the first time, right? But then he just came back and destroyed him the other times, right? And if you're saying a hungry Jon Jones, he can't be any hungrier. He hasn't fought for so long. He's in a new weight class. You know, he's dying to fight, right? So if they get him in there, it's going to be fireworks for sure. It's just another contract dispute again, you know, because he has brothers in the NFL and they make a lot of money. He's saying, look, I should be paid X amount. You know, UFC's making billions. How come I'm not making millions? And you know, you can't argue with them really, but the way the UFC is, there's so many people, so many stars, they have so many that they can even shelf a Jon Jones, which you think would be impossible, right? But they did. They said, well, if you want to fight for our terms, come fight. If you don't want to, well, you can see. So it's brutal, and it's bad for us because as fight fans, we want to see them fight, and they're not letting them fight because of contractual issues. So I'm very disappointed about that. If they can clean that stuff up and we can get to see some of these fights. Before these fights, they drift out and then they never happen, right? So, you know, he's losing prime fighting years, right? Like look at GSP and Anderson Silva. That fight never happened. It was all and it drifted away and it never happened, right? So you got to make these things happen when they're there.
Yeah, I totally agree. And then I totally agree. And it's kind of like too with Gegard Mousasi, the Bellator middleweight champion. Like he could have fought Israel Adesanya or Michael Bisping, but you know, at the end of the day, Gegard was just he wasn't getting he's not a guy that, you know, likes to talk trash. He likes to
unfortunately, he's not a larger than life kind of guy.
No.
So, you know, the UFC is like 50% ability, 50% marketing, right? I mean, you got to look at a guy like Sean O'Malley or some of these other guys that are, you know, they're more hype than ability, let's say, you know, like Sean O'Malley's a good fighter and everything. You know, but he got beat that other fight. Didn't look very impressive. He's handpicking his opponents. So he's you know, building on his brand. So if you color your hair orange and you say stupid things, you get more eyeballs, you make more money. So, you know, what happened to Covington? Covington was a nobody until he opened up the machine, and now he's one of the top draws, right? So
exactly,
it's a little bit of WWE, unfortunately, in the UFC, and it'll never go away because the true fans like me and you will go and we'll watch this for the technical, beautiful karate or martial arts part of it, right? These other, you know, sort of fans, they want the other stuff, right? They want that theatrics, they want the bad blood, they want you know, the trash talking. So as long as the UFC is you know, half the money comes from those guys, they've got to build up these guys in a WWE fashion to have the big pay-per-views. Otherwise, it doesn't sell. Look at Demetrius. Demetrius, great fighter, you know, unbelievable record, super technical, flying armbar, all kind of crazy stuff. Can't draw pay-per-view to do anything, you know.
His pay-per-view numbers were terrible. He needed someone to help him, and like he had to be a co-main.
A co-main, right? Because look, the average person doesn't want to see a small guy fight because in their minds, if Demetrius Johnson was at the bar that they were at, they could kick his ass. That's what they think, okay? Which they're wrong, you know. But that's what they think. They go, "This is a small guy. What's he going to do to me? I could just, you know, smash him." So they want to see big guys go at it. They want to see, there's just no desire to see the smaller guys fight, even though they're some of the best fights. Unbelievable, Dillashaw, some of the amazing fighters, Garbrandt before he started losing. I mean, great fights, fight of the nights all the time. And some of the heavyweight fights are snooze fests, right? I mean,
they really are.
Yeah.
Like for now, I feel in flyweight, Brendan Moreno is like, if he can continue, he's someone I enjoy watching because he's got that Mexican boxing style.
He's the real deal, man. You could see his heart, man. He's in there. It's a dogfight every time he's in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
He brings charisma, which Demetrius didn't have. Demetrius was more quiet.
Yeah, charisma, but not fake charisma like O'Malley and some of these other guys are. Patty, what's his name?
Oh, he's so annoying. I respect him, but it's like everyone's like overhyping him. Like it's like the man. It's like the man had one fight. Like just
exactly. I mean, what's up with that? I don't know.
I mean, it's like, for example, Israel Adesanya. Like, I wasn't sold on Izzy at first. I was watching him carefully. It was when he beat Derek Brunson. I was like, okay, I'm sold. I'm sold now.
Look, some of these guys, they got to come into their own. I mean, he's flashy. I mean, it's just something that, kind of held him back. But now, I mean, his dominance is very evident, right? So, so yeah, that's what about, now I'm drawing a blank there. The other guy from Africa.
Usman,
yeah, that's another guy. Low key, but gets the job done, man. He's beating all the big guys, right?
I really believe he will be the best welterweight of all time, and I know a lot of people hate hearing that, but we need to really look at the truth here, Sensei Tony. Look at it this way: when GSP was in the UFC at the time before he became championship, there were other little promotions, so you could just get one fight in the UFC, and then they put you in the title fight with then Matt Hughes, and the level of opponents that George had were not the ones that Usman had. Like, Usman had to fight the who's who. Like, he had to fight Leon Edwards. He had to fight a bunch of people until he got the title shot because they told Woodley, you have to fight him or else we're going to strip you of the title. Because we all know the UFC hated dealing with Tyrone. And, Usman has just won. He's basically, he's almost at Anderson's winning streak, which is scary.
The only way some guys can work their way up through the notoriety levels is by just continuously winning. You just keep winning until you can't say that he's not the best. He's just beating everybody, right? So what does he have to do? He's not loud. He's not trash talking, like you said, but he gets the job done time and time again until, he cleans out the division. Or what else can you say?
I think the problem with Usman is Usman is kind of like a Rashad Evans, because no one liked Rashad Evans at the time, but over time people started appreciating Rashad. And then Usman, the thing with Usman too is I feel like when he tries to act like a trash talker, he kind of copies others and it shows. So I feel like he struggles with being likable, but he'll become more likable with time, over time. That's how I look at Usman.
He has to come into his own, right? I mean, look, put yourself in Usman's position, okay? Here you have Covington, which is a guy that is, not look, I don't want to say he's talented too. He's a good fighter. And he doesn't get enough respect, because the guys that have beaten him are top level guys, right? And some of those fights, Covington, man, really showed a lot of heart. So I don't want to say, but he sees what Covington is doing and saying, my God, this guy is trash talking his way into title fights. And, I want to be more like him. So, you try to do it and it's not you. He's not like that, right? So he's trying to do it and it's not natural. So he's got to find his own groove, he's got to do it himself. A little bit like, GSP wasn't a great trash talker either.
No.
But for a while there, he had some good moments there with Bisping. Says, oh, are you drunk now? Are you drunk? The stuff that came out of him naturally was the best trash talking. And some of the other stuff, didn't really work. And, the beef he had with the Diaz
I remember that.
That was organic, real, okay? And you could see that he wanted to really punish him, right? And those are the best rivalries. Let yourself come through. And that's what Usman's got. He's got to be himself, Don't try to be somebody else. That's all.
What do you think
the guy's
of
21, he's an unbelievable fighter.
Yeah. And defeated in the UFC. But I want to ask you, because now people are saying, oh, Khamzat Chimaev is going to beat Usman. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to give a hot take here. I don't think Kamaru Usman is going to fight after 2022. I think he's going to do 2 more fights, a rematch with Gilbert Burns, and then he's going to fight Vicente Luque, and then he's ran through the division.
You're probably right. You're probably right. I mean, by then, he's done everything he's got to do. He's not just going to stick around until somebody finally beats him X day, whatever. His loss was so long ago that he's basically undefeated. Okay, he lost. I mean, his second fight, I think it was something like that. So he's like 19 wins in a row, something ridiculous like that, right? So a couple more fights, he doesn't have anything else to prove. And Chicken Deezy, he's got to work his way up a little bit more. And he is a very entertaining fighter, but I don't know if it'll ever happen, like you said.
I just feel if Hamzat, he tries to also copy Khabib. He's like an evil Khabib, but he's got to really work his way up, because then people are saying, oh, well, no one wants to fight Hamzat, but then people say, no, we want to fight Hamzat. So it's kind of like there's a lot of politicking where it's like, who's being honest about who wants to fight who?
They didn't want to fight him before because he was a really tough opponent, okay, with not a lot of name brand recognition. Now, though, he is getting that name brand, so he's being touted as the next great big thing, right? So now people will step up to fight him. I think that'll happen. But before, it was all downside. Why do I want to fight this guy? He's sort of a nobody, right? I mean, some people, think he's great, but not the general public. They don't really know who he is. So if he beats me, it sucks for me. If I beat him, no big deal. So they won't go for that matchup. But now, this guy's hype is just growing, by leaps and bounds, But he's entertaining to watch. I want to watch him too. He's amazing. Like he believes in himself so much that he makes it happen just by force of will, right? He's talented. So I'm looking forward to. But he's beatable.
He is. I think so too. Let's have him fight against a real challenger. Another dark horse when it comes to women. Right now, the way I look at the women's flyweight division, I don't think anyone's going to beat Valentina for as long as she wants to hold the belt. I think Valentina is untouchable. There was recently Casey O'Neill who said, "Oh, I think I'm gonna work." Hey, easier said than done. Everyone wants to beat Valentina. They always say, "I'm gonna beat her. I have the game plan for her." They get into the cage with Valentina, and it's like they get massacred.
She's really amazing, man. Like she's a standout, unbelievable. Look, the women's division, it's thin, right? Let's just face it. It's no matter what you do, there's just not thousands of women that want to be in the sport. It's a very small sliver of people that want to do MMA in the women's combat, and there's just so few superstars that this is what you get. You get the standouts, and there's just nobody else. What I would have said the same of Nunes, even though she lost.
Yeah,
but I didn't. When I watched that fight, I could tell her heart wasn't in it from the beginning. And she was not all in on that one. She has a baby at home now to take care of. You start to deviate from that killer instinct that you need at that level. You know what I mean? You can't just waltz in there and phone it in. You're not going to win. You're going to pull a Matt Serra. That's what's going to happen.
Oh yeah, Matt Serra. Though yeah, that upset. I mean, look, it's crazy, but it launched Matt Serra's career for a bit, and then Matt Serra over time became one of the most he's like the one guy that say, oh yeah, I knocked out GSP, but that kind of helped his brand in the long run, because now he's got
all the gyms, all the stuff he's doing is based off of that, right?
And him and George are friends. People are like, oh, George and him are good. Like George is like friends with everybody no matter what. Like
George doesn't blame Matt Serra for what happened, because it's not Matt Serra. That was all on George. George, I understand the whole how it happened. It's just that point in time in his life. I mean, people are feeding him, George, you're the best, George, you're unbeatable, George, this, that, whatever. He's like, man, who's Matt Serra? I'll be able to beat him easy, right? And that's not how it works. Just like Buster Douglas and just like all these upsets, that's when you take your eye off the ball. But look, it refocused GSP and gave us the best GSP ever, right? So it served a purpose in a sense. But look, Matt Serra, entertaining guy, man, and he got it done, right? He knocked him out. What can I say?
Would you say, okay, when it comes to the biggest upsets in combat sports, obviously Buster Douglas is like not everyone's, but it's a majority of everyone's number one biggest upset. What are your top three biggest upsets in combat sports?
Wow. So I for sure, for me, Buster Douglas, just unbelievable, because Tyson was just such a beast, okay? Like destroying people in 30 seconds. I mean, just completely dominating, right? So that, and it gets to the point where we didn't even watch anymore because we knew Tyson was going to win. So when that thing happened, we're like, oh my God, so that's number one for me, right? And number two, man, look, I was shocked by the GSP loss, and it was terrible. So I think maybe I put that as number two, and then Nunes is number three, because Nunes was another one where, we're thinking no one's going to touch her. This is hers as long as she wants it. But look what happened. You take your eye off the ball, and there you go. I mean, I was in shock. Everybody was in shock. So 1, 2, 3, something like that.
Okay. What about Ronda Rousey and Holly Holm? That's another one people are like.
So you know why I don't put that one in as much? Because Ronda Rousey was so one-dimensional. Okay, that was not as big of an upset. I mean, it was an upset for people that bought into the Ronda Rousey being unbeatable thing, but I didn't think that, and I think a lot of the people in the MMA community didn't think that either. So here she is trying to work on her boxing and stuff. That's great. You know, the boxing, you know, is supposed you're an Olympic gold medal or not bronze medalist in judo. Why would you want to box somebody? Okay, it doesn't make any sense. The boxing is great. You got to have it to set up your judo. You know, and if you can knock somebody out, that's great. But she took it too far, and she paid the price. You know, and then the comeback, bam, and that's another reason why. Like GSP was a big upset. Why? He came back, he dominated Matt Serra, he killed him, and then he went on to more greatness. So it makes the upset even greater. When Ronda, she loses, and she loses again. Okay.
Yeah, so it's like a stock going downwards.
It's not the same thing. That's why I think maybe it's not in the top 3.
Oh man, I remember when she lost. Okay, so and this is just when I got into MMA because like I was always very on and off with MMA between 2008 to 2014, but down to 2015 is when I finally like got bit by the bug, and I just remember it was on my 24th birthday, November 14th, and I remember
you bought into the hype train a bit though. I think
I didn't buy into the hype train for Ronda, but I remember people were talking about because when I got into MMA. It was because of Connor and because of Robbie Lawler. Those were the 2 guys that got me into it, as well as Gegard Mousasi and Jon Jones, and then Wonder Boy Thompson. Because GSP wasn't fighting then; he was gone.
No, that's true. I forget that there's different eras for me because I've been there from day one. So for me, it's all one big era. But for somebody coming in at like when you came in, so that older stuff, it's not as pertinent. But yeah, continue.
Yeah, and then I remember like everyone's like, "Oh my God, Ronda Rousey lost." They're like, "Oh my God, she lost." It was like the whole world like turned upside down. And then like when I was listening to MMA podcasts like Fight Companion with Joe Rogan for a good hour in 2015, they were just talking about where does Ronda go from here.
You know, you're right. And I think back of it now, and I also have to understand that for an average person, you know, Ronda Rousey was so high, and you know, because of the face of women's MMA. So when she lost, a person, man on the street, they found that even more shocking than, let's say, Nunes right now, because you know Rousey's level is she's so much more well known. She was so much more well known back then, as you know, the reason that you know Dana even put women in the UFC, right? So on every cover, she's in movies, all kinds of stuff, right? Fast and the Furious. So for sure, her level was super high. So there is that, you know, it was pretty shocking. That one was a big one too. Yeah.
I just feel though, like in that era though, because like I always like to say, if you look at the pay-per-views, because you've been there from day one, I've been there from 2015, but then I'm kind of, I use my history degree to go back in to look at everything. We were just so like, we were really privileged from 2015, you know, because 2014 was a real down year because GSP had left and that was a big hole to fill.
They lost a lot of their stars.
Yeah, so 2014 is like a very big down year, but then 2015 starts with Jon Jones, DC, then Anderson and Nick Diaz. Say what you want about it, but it was great to keep the hype going. Then you had like the fight nights that were rolling in, like Gus versus Rumble in Sweden with like a knockout, you know. Then you had
just when you think the UFC is losing its mojo, and you know, then a new person will come, and you know, that's the whole thing of the UFC, that these knockouts, these highlight reel submissions, it gets people back into it. Sucks them right.
It does. It really does. Like 2015, yes, from 2015 up to UFC 207, 207 in 2016. Man, the pay-per-views were just rolling.
The people will look back and say, "Oh man, I'm a fan of Chuck Liddell. Man, that was the golden era." Well, it wasn't really the golden era in terms of pay-per-view buys. You know what I mean? Like they're doing so much better now. I mean, Conor McGregor, I think, has 8 of the top 10 pay-per-views. You know, it's just ridiculous. It's all lately. So, you know, this thing has grown so much, and you gotta tip your hat to. You can love or hate Dana, whatever you want, you know, but it has grown to be, you know, a juggernaut, right? So, you know, we're watching now with the most eyeballs. I mean, depends on the pay-per-view card, of course. You know, they just raised the price by $5, so that's not gonna help them a lot. And there's all kinds of streaming now, so that's gotta be hurting the bottom line, you know. So there's always it's a moving target. It always is. But you're right. You know, at the time that you got back into it, I mean, the rise of Conor McGregor just can't be overstated. And I was a guy too that are like, who is this guy, man? Next guy's gonna knock him out, you know. This guy's gonna knock him out, you know. Alvarez is gonna kill him, no, you know. Aldo's gonna starch him. 13 seconds, you know, like
I know.
Unbelievable. I lost $100 on that fight. That was brutal.
Wait, you know what's another fight that not many people talk about that aged really well was the middleweight title fight between Chris Weidman and Luke Rockhold. That was another one.
God. That's bad blood too, man. That was a lot of bad blood on that one. So that was a reckoning. That was very nice.
It was East Coast versus West Coast again, in a sense, because you had Chris Weidman, the hardworking, gritty. It was like the New Yorker with the harsh winters. Then you have Luke Rockhold, like
he's a playboy. You know,
passes as an American James Bond with like how tall and good looking he is, and like the way. But let's be honest, Luke Rockhold has like the trajectory of what happened after how he lost the title. But before that, like Luke Rockhold has, like Henry Hoofda said, is the most skilled fighter he's ever coached.
Well, he had the world at his doorstep, basically, Rockhold. He could have parlayed that into like superstardom, you know, movie stardom, all kinds of stuff. But, you know, the way he lost, I know his descent after that kind of killed that a bit, right? So he's trying to get back on track. You know, look, fighting, man, it's a very unforgiving thing, and that's why GSP, like every time he wants to go back, but he's always thinking, man, you know, like if I go back and I get knocked out, it'll really tarnish my legacy and that, because he knows that you're one punch away from disaster. Okay, you're one punch away from victory and from superstardom, but you're also one punch away from disaster, right? And as a sensei, third degree, okay, I have a resto bar. People come and, you know, he's black belt, blah, blah, blah. But I'm always thinking in the back of my head that one of these guys is gonna beer ball me in the back of the head and I'm gonna fall down. It was, where's your black belt now, right? So you always got to worry about that. You're not Superman, you know, no matter what.
No.
So you can train all you want, and you could get knocked out by a boxer, you know, that just gets a drop on you, right? Then what? You know, you try to live that down after. You know, GSP doesn't need that kind of, you know, he's already achieved everything. So.
I agree, and it's just like some people know when to get out. Like for example, like Marvin Hagler got out. Like he had like the draw with Sugar Ray Leonard, and he was like, okay, I'm done, and that's it.
And now we love him, and you know he's other guys, they stay too long, tarnish their legacy, and it's a disaster, right? I mean, you only remember the last few fights. You don't remember all the glorious stuff. I mean, you do, but not as much.
Where does Lennox Lewis rank for you in terms of greatest of all time?
He is cerebral. He is an amazing fighter. He's really, really up there, man. And that guy really knew when to leave, you know? So I have a lot of respect for Lennox Lewis, a lot.
I just feel he doesn't get the love he deserves. People felt like he never really spoke much, but then like
he wasn't showboating, you know, he just gets the job done. But man, listen to him speak, you know, it's so much respect for that guy.
He has his brain cells still there, like he has no CTE, and you know, if you ever watch the YouTube channel Joseph Vincent, like they take like he does like it's board films Joseph Vincent. It's like a weird name, but they have the best. I will send you after our conversation like the breakdowns of like careers of like fighters like GSP, Habib, and they do such a great job like with how like they highlight it. Another fighter, another boxer too, like they also spoke about was Tommy the Hitman Hearns and Roberto Duran. Like Roberto Duran, like everyone was like saying, "Oh, Roberto Duran." I finally looked at the video and I was like, "Ooh, like I understand why everyone loves Roberto Duran."
Oh yeah, no, I remember him fighting, you know, live, right? I mean, I was around when I started my restaurant. I wanted to show the Tyson fights, but I couldn't. I didn't have a satellite. These were satellite affairs only. So there was another restaurant that my dad had it. He had the satellite dish there, right? So what I ended up doing is I set up a VCR over there. I would take. I started recording it an hour early, so there was all the early fights, right? And then I had another tape. So then I ran over, I stopped that one, I put that one in, I pressed record on that one, I took the other tape, I ran back to my restaurant, I put it in, I pressed play, and we were watching it, and I did that 2-3 times. So I had the Tyson fight on the big screen at my place, but it was like a tape delay of, I don't know, maybe half an hour, right?
Wow.
So you know, that's the era that I grew up in, man. And you know, Tyson would pack the place. I mean, the place was just jammed with people. Like it was just amazing, right? And Roberto Duran and Marvelous Marvin Hagler, all those guys. But boxing was so much more. There's no UFC back then, and it was just, you know, boxing was everything, and it was just the spectacle was just crazy, you know. And these guys were the baddest people on the planet, and you know, they had skills. And I just heard, I think it was Oh boy, I'm not going to be. I'm not sure which. I think it was Hearns. Maybe Hearns, maybe not. But they were commenting on our present crop of heavyweight fighters, Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder, and these guys are saying these guys have no skills. That's what these guys are saying. These old boxers. They're saying the guys that we fought, the era that we fought in, man, it was a completely different level. And you watch those old fights and you watch these new fights, and you're like, okay, this is like the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, Tyson Fury. Okay, he can hit hard and everything, but he isn't the most technical boxer, and he isn't the most, it's not the best movement. Yeah, you see some of these older guys, and I have more respect for them than I do for the current crop. I'm sorry.
I understand completely, because you look at a guy like Lennox Lewis. Like, Lennox knew how to move with his jab, and then go in for and when you watch Lennox piece apart his opponents, it was art. It was truly art.
The sweet science, and they weren't kidding back then. They took that stuff seriously. Whereas now, I don't know. It's more brawling. It's not the same. I wish I could transplant some of those older fighters and have a go around with the present crop, and see what we get, man. And they should be better today, because they've got the tape. Like I said, they can go back and they can watch fighters, and they can look for tendencies, and there's better training, and there's better nutrition, and there's sports science, where before sports psychology, where back then, well, if you had some inner demons, well, too bad for you, you lost.
I could never. It's really hard, because Mo loves the Russian fighters. I love American and African American fighters specifically. It's really weird, and it's Mo's how come you never get into the Russian fighters? It's they just show no emotion. I just can't.
True, eh?
They're very robotic.
For them, man, the win is I win. That's it. Yeah. but you like the other stuff. You like the struggle and the story, and the fun ways. That's part of it, right? I mean, we grew up in different cultures, so
it's true. I love the Charlo twins right now. I mean, there's so many champions. The Charlo twins are they're two brothers from Houston, Texas, and one of them is rumored, but Haymakers, a legitimate combat news source, have reported that apparently one of the Charlo brothers is in line to fight Canelo next.
Wow. Hey, that'd be interesting.
It would be. But Canelo, it's I always say this. I always feel MMA and UFC will be around 20 years from now. Boxing is the one that I feel has to really figure out a way. How are they going to get those
they're all over the
demographics?
place now. It's all money fights now. I mean, it's just, anybody will fight anybody if the money's right. So the belts don't really mean anything, the UFC is much more structured now, and they've got the criticisms too, but boxing, they share more money with their fighters. So a lot of people want to go in that direction, but the organization is shit, all these, the fracturization of the belts, and who's running what, and it's just all a bit of a joke, so the future of it is in jeopardy. If it wasn't for Jake Paul and his brother there, they're actually doing more for boxing than these other guys, Tyson Fury and guys like that. It's a little bit crazy.
They really are. I mean, you can say what you want about Jake Paul, but they have done something to inject some form of a weird life into it, with these celebrity freak show exhibitions and whatnot. But listen, it puts eyes on the sport for boxing, and then boxing says, hey, look, we're competing with the UFC and MMA. But it's just that the UFC will always have stars coming in. There'll always be that star.
That farm system that maybe the boxing doesn't have as well. But I mean, look, life and the world is changing. Okay, we got to change with it. My kids today, they're not going to grow up the way I grew up. That's just the way it is, right? So, TikTok, all the stuff that the kids are into now, YouTube, like Logan Paul, you can say what you want about him, right? But I mean, he comes in with his own cheering section built in, right? So that's the new reality, and you gotta accept that, right? So he can't be a good boxer because he's on YouTube. What if Mike Tyson was on YouTube before he was a boxer? Would that make him not a boxer? That's not the way it is now. Everybody's on YouTube nowadays. All the successful people are, churning out all kinds of content on there. So you can't disqualify somebody from being a fighter because they're on YouTube or because of this. The guy's got some skills, and okay, he's handpicking his opponents for sure. But some of those guys, if I went into the ring with Woodley, I don't know if I can knock him out, right? I don't think I could. So let's give him some props. That's just the way it is.
It's very true. It's crazy times to live in. And then guess we'll segue that into obviously when we were talking about James Bond, always off record. So obviously No Time to Die came out, Daniel Craig's last Bond. I want to ask you, what do you think the future holds for James Bond without giving away any spoilers? Because I don't want people to be like, hey, what the?
Wow, it's difficult to not give away the spoiler,
Yeah.
you know. But look, it's clear that Daniel Craig, like, he wanted to end his tenure a certain way with some finality and say, look, it's my last Bond film, and where do we go from here? I mean, obviously, he recreated Bond. He brought him back to his roots as, look, the guy's an assassin. Okay, so in the past, sometimes it went off into the campy directions, and some people like that stuff, some people don't. But everybody agrees that Daniel Craig's gritty portrayal of James Bond is the closest to how they envision. Look, we all love James Bond. We want to be James Bond. I mean, he's so cool. He's a spy. He can he can do almost anything, right? I mean, it's just that he's a superhero without being a superhero, right? So he gives it a reality, a gritty reality that was lacking before. So where does it go from here? Wow. It can go in a lot of different directions. So they kind of, in the movie, they tried to like plant seeds so they could take it in different directions. So they could do a female James Bond, or they could do a completely different James Bond, or whatever. I don't know. I mean, you got to think, Bourne Identity, the whole Jason Bourne thing. They felt that when they made James Bond 2, and they say, well, look, we don't want him to become the new James Bond for young people, and we stay with the old crowd, right? So they had to recreate James Bond a bit with Daniel Craig to kind of recapture some of that that bleeding that was happening from Jason Bourne, because he was becoming the modern day spy, right? So where do they go from here? Wow. They could go in a lot of different directions. I mean, they got to reboot it again. I don't think they can continue from where they left off. So they got to reboot again. So do you go back to the source material and go again? I think it's too soon. You can't remake Casino Royale again and with a new guy. And I don't think they can do that. So I think they're gonna have to. I don't know what they're gonna do. I really don't know what they're gonna do. What do you think they're gonna do? Even more than me. So
here's the thing. So obviously they've tried to do this where, if you remember when A View to a Kill came out with Roger Moore stepped down. That was a very big thing because Roger Moore was seen as the people's James Bond. Kids loved Roger Moore. Yeah. But when they brought Timothy Dalton in, Timothy Dalton was the pre-Daniel Craig, before Daniel Craig.
You're right.
Timothy Dalton said, I'm going to bring back Fleming's character. And he basically said, actually, give me one moment. I have the book right here. I'm going to get it for you.
Do it.
Yeah, because I have the book, I have the making of The Living Daylights, one of my little Christmas gifts to myself.
Cool.
So Timothy Dalton had a very, very powerful quote. He says, I guess I was being a real purist about it all. So he wanted to really bring Fleming's character back because he said—
he was ahead of his time in a way.
He's like, I can't compare myself to Roger. He said, Roger brought his version of the character and Sean brought his version. And he's like, but eventually, when you do something so much, you become a caricature of yourself. And he said, who? And I had to, and I said, and Cubby Broccoli asked me, Timothy, who is James Bond to you? And he said, James Bond is an assassin that murders in cold blood. And
that's what it is.
Yeah. And I think, Timothy Dalton does not get enough love he deserves. And you've seen me tell you about that, and everyone that knows. I feel like Daniel Craig owes Timothy Dalton a portion of his accolades because Timothy Dalton was Daniel Craig before Daniel Craig, but the world wasn't ready for that for Timothy Dalton because they were still under the spell and the malaise of Roger Moore and Sean Connery, and maybe George Lazenby from On Her Majesty's Secret Service. But that's another one that I've realized I put in my top two because Living Daylights and On Her Majesty's Secret Service were the closest to the novels.
Right. Timothy Dalton, unfortunately, wasn't he slated to do 2 more films? I believe it was.
He was. So the third film. So he did this one here, The Living Daylight. And by the way, when it comes to Timothy Dalton's gun barrel, he had the best gait, the best walk, the best. Yeah, to me, he's like the best. Anyways, Timothy Dalton did The Living Daylights, License to Kill, which I think is now in my top Bond film of all time over Living Daylights. And there was supposed to be 2 more. He was supposed to do Property of a Lady, which was supposed to come out in November of 1991. And in 1993, he was supposed to do the then supposed GoldenEye. And
Wow.
Alan
That would have been
Rickman
so
was
different.
going to play. Supposedly, Alan Rickman was tagged, was suggested to play 006, and that would have been like, I think that would have. I love Pierce Brosnan's GoldenEye, and I love. I just think that golden version of GoldenEye would have been much more dark and much
Well,
more
you
real.
know what you said, if they had brought in 006, right, they could have taken the whole Bond thing in a different direction. Whereas you could have done the double O's, and there could have been more than one, right? And then you could have them being killed off because there was another one. There's 005, there's 003, right? There's a whole team of them. We only see 007 over and over again, right? He makes reference to like 008 will take my place or stuff like that, but there's not only one. So there was a few movies where there was some other 00s, and they played off of that. But they could have done that with the franchise. That would have been interesting. But having I don't know if they're gonna reboot. I don't know which direction they're gonna go in. I really don't. And I bet you they, part of the problem with the people that you mentioned, Lazenby and even Dalton, is it all depends on the studios at the time. So depending on what they want, you kind of gotta follow what they're saying. So you want to make it more greedy, you want to make it whatever, but they don't. They want to go in a different direction. You can't. You're not the boss, right? You're just the actor. Right. So it super depends where they're going with the franchise at that time. Just like
very true.
DC, right? I mean, we're talking what's in the Snyder Cut. He was trying to go in a certain direction. They wanted it more like Marvel. They wanted more, fun and games in it. So you had half a movie being dark and half a movie being light and airy, and it was a shit movie. Nobody wanted to see it.
Exactly. I really think the trajectory of the next James Bond, the future of the James Bond franchise depends on Barbara Broccoli and Michael G. Wilson. It really depends on what they want to do. Yeah. Now I know Barbara Broccoli has made it clear that Bond will be a man. So that's one thing we can confirm. So for those who are thinking of a female James Bond, sorry, not happening. And she confirmed that this is and some things you just stay traditional with. So I think it's going to be. They have said it's going to be a British actor. They didn't say it doesn't matter. They also said it could be black, Chinese, Hindu.
Idris, they say his name a few times.
I don't care about his ethnicity. I just want to know if they can get a good British actor that can act. But I like that. However, here's a new twist now. Christopher Nolan has thrown his hat to become the next director. But there's going to be conditions with that because you and I both know Chris Nolan likes to bring his guys along, like Cillian Murphy, Tom Hardy. Sure. So that's going to be interesting.
Christian Bale, maybe, who knows? There's a lot of interesting that might be what it needs to jumpstart it again. But I think they won't stray too far from the Daniel Craig mold because it was so successful, and they obviously hit gold with that. So why would they go in a completely different direction? I don't think so. So it'll probably be in that genre, but you throw in a guy like Nolan and all bets are off. We don't know what we're going to get. So
Nolan has said that he enjoyed the Daniel Craig films. He really likes what Daniel Craig brings. And then he went on record to say, who is the best Bond for you? And he said, Timothy Dalton. And he also brought up that. He said Timothy Dalton brought the character, had the mold of a Daniel Craig, the modern character. He's like, and he said that License to Kill was his favorite Bond film because it was the truest to the novel. Because License to Kill is I think License to Kill is the most brutal Bond film to watch. Like the beginning, you have Robert Davi, bringing in committing a femicide somewhat on his lover, for going to a rival drug dealer. Then you have Bond leaving MI6 to avenge Felix Leiter. And he does
you're a purist, right? You're a purist, and you go into the story and you're saying, "Wow, this is amazing," right? Whereas you ask 100 people, well, they don't want to go that far back in the Bond catalog.
I always push them. I push them though. I tell them, go watch License to Kill. I say, listen, watch License to Kill. I said, thank me later. Ask questions after. It's one of the best ones. It's such a good one. Because Pierce Brosnan, I'm going to be real honest with you, Sensei Tony. Yes, Pierce Brosnan was amazing, okay? But I just felt like he got a raw end of a deal after GoldenEye.
Well, if I remember, they wanted him to be Bond a lot earlier than he actually became Bond because of other obligations that he had. So it might have been different. The era that you come into is very important. I mean, like Thomas Crown Affair, that was a very, very good movie on his behalf, and could have been in that direction a bit. So look, Bond is one of the iconic people of the 21st century. I mean, everybody's heard of him, even if you've never even seen one of his movies, you know who he is.
Right.
The theme song is just unbelievable. There's so much mythology there, and I grew up with those movies, and they re-show them on TV, and if it was on, I just drop everything and I'm watching that. I don't care whatever else was on TV.
Right.
They were ahead of their time in a lot of ways, right? So now look at the market's crowded with all kinds of action adventure, and they're trying to. It's hard to be all things to all people. Like my kid won't watch anything before 2000. If it was filmed before the year 2000, he doesn't want to watch it. Okay, it doesn't matter how good it is.
Oh my God,
that's just crazy. What it is, right? I'm trying to get him. Look, we're gonna watch Total Recall. You're gonna love it. Schwarzenegger. So I force him to watch it, right? We're watching it, and it's a good movie, right? But even I can see how it's dated, right? I mean, some of these effects and some of the stuff that I thought, man, this is just fantastic, because in my mind it was fantastic. Now I watch it again, and okay, it's not super fantastic. You know what I mean? So you gotta give the kids a little bit of a break for that. They don't want to go back as far as you're telling them. No matter what, how good you say it is. You can't get them to watch.
It's very it is very, very true, and honestly, it's just like like even the RoboCop. I was watching the old RoboCop recently. That's a dated film too, but at the time it's like, oh, this is amazing. Like,
well, you know what? Didn't age poorly. The Terminator. I watched Terminator 2 with my kids, and they liked that.
Okay.
So the guy was liquid metal. Okay, the effects weren't as good as today, of course, but some great action sequences there. So some movies age well, some don't, not so well.
And it's just crazy how speaking of movies and Kyokushin and all that, like it's just crazy how Cobra Kai, now Cobra Kai.
Did you love Bloodsport and Cobra Kai, man? That was just blew my mind. I loved it. Yeah. They showed Bloodsport in Cobra Kai, man, and I mean, Bloodsport for me was just that. My kids even saw Bloodsport, and they still remember it to this day. It's one of the ones.
Oh my God! Yeah, and they showed the guy with wearing the Kyokushin kanji, but then
yes, they're everywhere. They're everywhere. Yeah. I saw that later. Some people are picking them out, and they're all over the place because hey, I'm sure half the stunt guys. I mean, I watch some of the stunts, and we do harder stuff in the dojo. I mean, I hit my guys and make it a lot more realistic. Some of the stuff that these guys are doing, they're stunt guys, right? Because they're pulling their punches, they're doing other stuff, and we're hitting each other, man. And it's like, that would make a great film. Just let some Kyokushin guys just smash each other, People will say, holy man, how did they film that? We just hit each other. That's it.
And there was a scene too in season 2 where Johnny gets the laptop and he was watching like tournament highlights. And he sees the guy get knocked and he goes, huh, it's like, what a sissy. And it was a Kyokushin tournament. You have to really watch closely for those.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. Hey, look, karate, Cobra Kai is reigniting all the, Karate Kid did a lot for karate back in the day, right? And lots of people joined because of that, right? So, you can say what you will about those films, but they're part of the landscape now. And now here Cobra Kai is doing it again. So, it's
fun
awesome.
fact, the karate they do is actually based off Tang Soo Do, a Korean martial arts. So that's not something that when you watch the interviews, Martin Cove describes that they brought in one of Chuck Norris's Tang Soo Do instructors to teach them karate. So that's what it's karate, but it's really Tang Soo Do. But now with the Kyokushin showing up in Cobra Kai, it's like, hey, yeah, we're recognized.
Hey, we'll take it. Well, any shout out, man. We're there. Well, I like the fact that Miyagi-Do is a softer sort of. You can tell the differences even in the show of the Eagle Fang or Cobra Kai version of hardcore karate versus the softer Miyagi-Do. But obviously, you can't just block, right? You gotta strike back. So you need a little bit of both. And that's what they're figuring out there. That it's going to make a nice amalgamation, especially for season 4. It's going to be interesting.
I really think so too. I don't know how long they could go with this. I mean, because what I noticed too, the pattern with Netflix shows, they do 5 or maybe 6 seasons, and then that's it. We're done. So
Look, I mean, how many times can like people switch camps and now Robbie's with them, now he's with them, now he's with them. You run out of story after a while. It becomes a little derivative. So they'll ride it as long as they can, and look, I'm lapping it up, and it's one of the shows I can watch with my kids, and we all love it at the same time. So it's great stuff.
I love the play on all the '80s culture stuff, and it's like, or the '90s to a degree. It's like, yeah, nice. But it's really crazy how the guy who plays Johnny has really rebranded himself. Like he went away for he did some shows and some movies after Karate Kid, made his money, did good, and then he just went away after, and then came
just
back.
Like Terry Silver, the guy that plays the villain in the latest one. After that, he did a couple of things and he faded away, and that's it. And how here he is, 20 years later, whatever, brought back for a bit part. I mean, it was just one of the minor things that he did in his, but he's most well known for that, right? So here it comes back 20 years and he's back in the mainstream again. So it's amazing how they resuscitate their careers based on something from 20 or 30 years ago. It's crazy.
Ralph Macchio, I believe, had the best trajectory because he did the most after, because he not only did Karate Kid series, he did other films such as The Outsider.
Yeah, he did a lot of other stuff, or was that before? I'm not sure if that was before, but
a bit of both, but also too, he was also in TV shows. And then when the internet came out, he was one of the early '80s celebrities that really took advantage of his brand and
you go forward. Yeah.
And now everyone's, oh my God, I love Ralph Macchio. And it's like, why is that? Oh, because it's Cobra Kai. And then I watch Karate Kid and it's nice. It's really nice to see, as I said, we'll take it. I mean, and if it helps enroll dojo enrollment at Hawkesbury, Boucherville, Joanne's school, elsewhere in Nakamura, hey, it's a win for us.
It's great for kids, right? I mean, it's kids, there's two kinds of kids in karate. The ones that their parents bring them, okay? Well, those kids, they're there because the parents either did karate or want karate, and they're pushing their kids. And the kids will go a certain level, and then they won't do it anymore because it's not in them. Because karate, there's a lot of sacrifice, a lot of pain, Mm-hmm. So if the kid's there because of somebody else, he's not going to stick with it, right? Then the other kids that want to do it, they want to do it, and they're making their parents bring them. Well, those are the kids that are going to go far, right? So, if they watch Cobra Kai and they get inspired and they want to do it, and that brings in a new influx. Some of the future karatekas will come from there, man. It doesn't matter how you start. It doesn't matter. It matters how you end.
It's very true. I mean, you look at Mo, when you talk to Mo, but Mo didn't get into karate because of Karate Kid. It was because by chance his parents brought him to the then Lamar dojo. But at the time too, Mo was into Rumble in the Bronx. So we all have our reasons for why we get into martial arts. Like what movies? Jackie Chan, Van Damme, Natalie, my friend Nat. Shout out to my friend Natalie Paz. If you know her and her brothers Edgar and Eduardo Paz from Lamar dojo. Natalie is was a killer. Is a killer, in female, tiny. She's sorry, Nat, sorry to say your height there, but she was a very, very good fighter, and it's and she probably got into it too because maybe she watched, I don't know, maybe she watched the Karate Kid with the girl or with Hilary Swank.
Yeah,
or I don't know,
Cynthia Rothrock, maybe. Who knows, right? Who knows what the inspiration is, but she's there. She's in there, so that's great. And I've seen a lot of talented women fighters, man. Some of these kicks, I mean, I kind of see them coming, man. They're super fast and very effective. So shout out to them for sure.
Oh man, the females in Kyokushin are easy fights, ass.
When you're doing your belt and you got some of these women fighters, you're like, some people are like, oh great, I got a girl, I got a break. Dude, you didn't get a break, man.
No,
their tiny hands are gonna drive into your ribs, and you're gonna pay. You're gonna feel it.
I can say this: I've seen Sensei Corinne's technique because she was doing a passage. It was in December, and Sensei Corinne has some of the girl she was sparring with. The girl was I'm gonna be very. I don't want to sound I don't want to sound wrong here, but she was very trying to not go hard on Corinne because she knows Sensei Corinne can go just as hard as well. And Sensei Corinne is so experienced. So.
Oh, well, I mean, I was at the Passage this November or December, I think it was November. And so I was the Shishin, I was a ref for some of these fights. And, when Karin shows up, the opponent knows it's not a break time. You're gonna work a little extra this time, right? So her footwork is unbelievable, and she brings it every time, no doubt about it.
I would have loved to see her. I mean, I don't know what her window is to compete because you can't compete forever. But I would have loved to see her fight some of Like
She's got a
the
lot
other,
more window left there. She's going back to Japan, the earliest
yeah,
opportunity, and she'll be there
yeah.
again. And she's the reigning champ on. They know her very well in
Hmm.
Japan, so they're looking forward to seeing her again, and so am I.
But there are other associations that have champions. Like I would love to see Sensei Corinne fight, because I know Sensei Corinne's name, brand, and recognition in the karate world would help really grow the art. And as I said, whenever even though we're small, I mean, we're not small, but we're medium, but we're
Growing
growing.
fast. Yeah.
But the more we can show that our organization is also here to help play a role in growing Kyokushin, everywhere else has to realize that we have a lot to offer. Like there's a
Well,
lot of we have a
that,
lot
that
of quality.
there's a lot of quality, but look, there, like you said, there's other organizations. There's quality people there too. I mean, we can't say, oh, look, that blah blah blah. It's no good. I mean, there's lots of good, amazing fighters in there, and they happen to be in that organization. Look, I was in that organization before too, other organizations. So you end up where you end up sometimes, and you don't make the decision sometimes as a lower echelon black belt. You follow your dojo where your dojo goes. So you're not going to break off and go somewhere else unless there's something seriously wrong, right? So
No, exactly.
sometimes you end up where you end up. But what I would have loved to see would have been a pan Kyokushin tournament where no matter which organization you're from, but this is like the best of the best tournament where we'll take the champions from everywhere, or you leave it open and say come and let's find out who really is the best. But it'll never happen because people won't want to go there on the off chance you lose, because you go there and you lose, then it's bad for your brand. So that's why those guys won't show up for this pan Kyokushin tournament, right? Not going to happen.
It's really sad, but as I said, I understand. But now, as I said, with what we're doing, I think it's important we collaborate with as much organizations as possible. Like here's one example. Since now that I'm part of IKO Nakamura, like I have, my role is to make sure that I represent the organization, like not only for when I'm around others like yourself, Sensei, or others in Nakamura. I have to make sure when I'm like working, for example, like Shian Daniel Godet of IKO Matsushima and Shian Dominic Ohan of IKO Matsushima, when I talk to them, I have to make sure that I'm representing Nakamura well. Like it's not like because they came, because Dan came on my show. Dan has now welcomed me into his dojo. If I ever go to New Brunswick, I have to talk to Shian Pierre about that, so Shian Pierre could set it up. But the matter is, the more we're collaborating, the more we're going to get done together, and that's what I realized too.
We're not enemies, okay? It's not that. We're all trying to grow in the art and get better in the art. And Kyokushin is still Kyokushin. And the average person doesn't understand, okay, 1, 2, 3, 10. They don't care about that either, right? It's Kyokushin. No. So, we can't, if you badmouth another organization, you're really badmouthing Kyokushin too. So that's not helping the organization at all, right?
No.
You do the best that you can do in your organization, and good things will come. And that's all you have to do. And the more we reach out, I mean, these other organizations, these are people that trained under Oyama. They were Mas Oyama's top students, and they've spread out all over the world, right? Lots to learn from all of those guys. And, nobody has a more legitimate claim than anybody else. Like, they were all students, and they all have their own claim to fame. So it's all good stuff. That's my opinion. So I can learn from anybody, and I can't know it all, and I'll never know it all, but I'm always willing to open my mind and my heart and learn more from anyone.
Same. It doesn't matter. Like, I'm just here to train. I'm here to branch out. I'm here to help grow. And if I can help discover if I can help discover another dojo that we haven't really heard about that's in Kyokushin, hey, my goal is to make sure to bring them into the light, so that way they get the representation, because it's all Kyokushin. And you just said it yourself, if you're bad-mouthing one organization, you're bad-mouthing your dojo to a degree.
Pretty much. And the sense of community that you said, I could fly to South Africa. I've never been to South Africa. I could fly over there. I can find where the Kyokushin dojo is in there in Cape Town, and I could go there, show up with a gi or no gi, and say, hi, hey, I'm in the neighborhood. I'd like to train with you guys. I am sure that they would embrace me like a brother, and I'd train with them, and I would have the best time ever. And, that's what Kyokushin is. It's an extra family that's worldwide. And it's a special thing that I don't know if people understand how important and how fantastic that is, but it's fantastic.
It's very true. Like, for example, like the IKO, the branch chief of IKO Algeria, Sensei Usama, when I spoke with him, like, cause he was like, when I tagged the photo that I'm like, hey, I've joined IKO Nakamura, he messaged me right away, and I said, hey, Sensei, I said, you're from Algeria. I'm like, he's like, yeah. Like, you come to Quebec, message me right away. stay with me, spare your money from a hotel, you're gonna stay with me. And that's the thing too. Like it's like Sasha too. Senpai Sasha Tadayoni from Shion Tatsu Dojo. Sasha's like, hey man, you come to Vancouver, I'll make sure you're taken care of. You don't stay at a hospital, you stay with me. Sasha, you come to Montreal, I'll make sure you stay at my place. You stay, take my bed, I'll sleep on my couch. I don't mind.
That's how it is. That's how it is. It really is a brotherhood. It's just that respect, because karate is one of those sports, or let's call it, it's not a team sport, right? So it's not like hockey or soccer or whatever. In the end, it's an individual sport for you. But it's not, because those people are there to help you. Yes, when you're fighting the other guy, your friend's not going to jump in and help you fight. Okay, that's not going to happen. But I mean, if you were somewhere else, they would, right? If you were in a back alley somewhere, for sure they would. But to get you to that point, that's where that whole team aspect is there, because you're training with these people. They're correcting you, they're helping you, they're cheering you up when you feel down because you don't feel good that day and you weren't going to show up, but they made you go. All that stuff. It super is a team sport in that sense, and it's, like I said, it's worldwide. So it's great. I mean, it's part of who I am now, and wouldn't have been the same person if I hadn't done Kyokushin. All karate is good. I lucked out that I ended up in a Kyokushin family, and it's premier karate. I mean, I'll say it again and again. I remember speaking to an individual. He was doing Shotokan, another great branch of karate. And when he found out that I was doing Kyokushin, he's, oh man, that's great. Next time I'm in Hawkesbury, he said, I'll bring my gears and we'll spar. And I said, well, I always have my gears, because in Kyokushin, there's no gears, man. These are my gears right here. I'm always wearing my gears. So he had a good laugh about that. It's not, you Kyokushin guys are crazy, but that's how we roll.
We're a different breed. We are a different breed. And I guess that's where we'll conclude here. Sensei Tony, thank you so much for coming on. I had such a blast. Like I felt like there was no rust in this at all. And where can people connect with you if they want to, restaurant
on my Facebook link? My name's about that long, but I mean, I'm sure Drew will put in a link there, and you're welcome to come train at the Hawkesbury dojo. Right now we're out for the count like everybody else. We're kind of training at home, but that won't last forever. So it'd be great to see anybody that's in the area driving by or coming by, man. We'd welcome with open arms. So and you too, Mr. Drew.
Hey, I'm gonna come. I'm coming. I'm gonna come. As I said, I'm part of Nakamura now, so might as well take advantage of all the invitations that I have.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, hey, thanks for having me again. I really enjoyed it, and I hope the listeners had some entertainment out of it.
Oh, we will. All right, guys, make sure to hit the like, share, subscribe to Drew Experience on Instagram. It's on Facebook. I'm not on Twitter. Just subscribe to YouTube and just share. That's all I ask.
Thanks, Drew. Much appreciated.